because
what does that mean to have standards of relationship?
But this is the thing that's so interesting about it, because they gendered the argument when I never did. I said as a man, you shouldn't have a girlfriend who's a liar and a cheater, and you also shouldn't have male friends who are liars and cheaters. You shouldn't be around dishonest people, male or female.
Amen.
And they gendered it and said, he's a misogynist, he's saying that men should only act this way with women, etc. I said that men should have standards, and you should have protocols that you're prepared to accept, and you should have hard parameters, and if a woman doesn't want to adhere to those parameters, that's her decision, and it's her prerogative, but you don't have to stay with her. Why should you?
What's wrong with that?
Well, that's teaching men to say no. They don't want men to say no.
So are you arguing that it's better to be with a virtuous woman?
I think so, yes. I know that's...
No, I'm serious.
I don't want to...
That seems like good advice.
I don't want to come across as extreme, but yes, I am. And what's actually funny is I really believe most of the things I'm saying were accepted by absolutely everybody 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And now it's public enemy number one. And it's because of the mass influence I have. At one point, I became the most Googled man on earth. At one point. And it's a scary situation.
I mean, if you're arguing that it's really important for a man to find a good woman, a decent woman, an honest woman, that's the truest thing that's ever been said.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing any man can do. I mean, I can just tell you firsthand.
Oh, thank you very much.
Married 32 years. That's the most important thing. And you think saying that angered people?
Absolutely, because I'm arguing the only way to do that is by masculine excellence. I'm saying the world we live in today is hyper-competitive, and if you want to be the kind of man that has the choice of women to choose a good one, you need to be an excellent man. It's no longer acceptable for you to just be an average Joe or below average. You have to get up, and you have to work hard, and you have to be smart and interesting, and you have to be charismatic and make some money and be in good shape, and you have to try very hard. And unfortunately, for them, if you follow that path as a man and you become successful in those realms, you end up being the kind of person who resists slavery. You become the kind of person who wakes up and says, that doesn't make sense.
I can't imagine a better message than that.
If you want a good society, so then you have to argue and say, do these people want a happy, functioning society, or do they want something else? What do you think? I think that I would never kill myself. And I also
just throw that out there.
And I also think that when you want to conquer a society, you kill the military agents. That's what you do. It's the first thing they've ever done. They walk in and all the men have to have their throats cut. They can't perhaps do that, but they can certainly cut the balls off. And then you can't resist. And I think there's certainly a movement to ensure that there's very little resistance left inside of the number one demographic which is required to resist oppression, which are military-age males. And they don't want those kind of people waking up with any kind of self-respect or standards, or to say, no, I don't accept this. I do not need a night projection. They don't want that. They want to sit and say, I don't need it. You said so, oh well.
So in the one interview that you and I did, you had a line that I've been thinking about ever since. I thought it was so interesting. I think about it before. You said that a lot of people went along with the vax, and you didn't judge them because that's true. But now that we know that a lot of what we were told was wrong and some of it was a lie, it is a requirement of your own dignity, of your own self-respect, to say so.
Completely. People should apologize. I really do believe, and I have nothing against people who fell for the propaganda, fell for the programming. Yes, I agree, fine. But you should wake up and say, I was fooled, I've learned my lesson, I will not be fooled again. But if you were fooled by the MSN and took the injection, and you continue to be fooled, and you've not self-reflected, you've not realized that they lied to you the entire way, you now believe the new bunch of lies that are all over the television, there's something wrong with you. Or you don't care that you were lied to. You don't care that you were lied to, because I think a lot of this is actually genuinely cowardice. I think it's a very easy worldview. The life is easier if you accept the news tells the truth.
Yes.
Everything they want me to believe is true. Everything's nice and simple. Good guys, bad guys. Doop-de-doop-de-doop. And if you want to actually wake up, it takes a degree of bravery, because then you have to destroy your entire worldview, everything you've ever understood and everything you're told, and you have to really look at the world and go, oh, this is a mess. And that takes bravery. And once again, that's why they don't want men to be brave. They want you to sit there and go, oh, it's easier, just, CNN said, so it must be true. And it's cowardice. And they're trying to instill cowardice in all of us. That's what they're trying very hard to do. And I think even just me as a person, the people who hate me, my detractors who dislike me so much, even if I say nothing, I just turn up, big, bald, strong, fast car. But it's just me. I'm like the enemy to them. Because I symbolize men who don't comply. And not don't comply in a negative law-breaking way, but don't comply in if we don't agree with that, or we don't see common sense in that, we're going to politely decline. And that's simply not allowed.
What's it like to have the prospect of prison hanging over you?
I think that I like to believe that this is a test from God. I like to believe that if you become the most brutal man in the world for saying that you have mental resilience, that God is going to make sure you don't have that degree of pain without testing you. I like to believe that God comes along and says, yes, I've allowed you to become top G. We're going to see if you really are the top G. I believe that's how the world works. It's certainly intimidating, especially knowing you're completely innocent. But I believe it's a test, and I believe it's my job to pass the test for my ancestors and people watching over me and for God. And I think I have to do the absolute best I can possibly do in the scenario and the circumstance, regardless of whether I win or lose. I still believe I'm going to win because I've seen the case file and I've seen that no laws have been broken. But even in the very unfortunate circumstance that this matrix attack goes deep enough to throw me into a jail cell, I think I should handle it like a man. I think I should stay and finish the process, and I should walk with my head held high and suffer as much as I need to suffer to stick by my convictions and know that I'm an innocent person. And I refuse to break. I refuse to cry. I refuse to be depressed about it. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to smile regardless. And regardless of what happens to me, I want everyone to know that, one, I would never kill myself, and two, I think that as a man, there's always going to be a degree of pain and suffering in your journey. I don't think you're ever going to become a successful man or be good at being a man without pain and suffering. And there's many times in my life where something terrible happened to me, and at the time, if I could change it, I would have. But retrospectively, you kind of look back and go, you know what, that was formulative for me. Right? That was what God decided I needed to become who I became. So all of the pain and all the suffering I've ever gone through in my life ended up, in the end, building me to the person I am, and I'm proud of who I am. So if God decides I need to go back to a Romanian dungeon for however many days, then all I can do is accept it, accept His plan, and accept this to make me a better person. And
so you see the hand of God in your life?
Absolutely. I think that He's the best of planners. And you know what? Absolutely. I think that He's the best of planners. And like I said, if you retrospectively analyze all the times in life you wish you could have changed things, He knew better. And I'm going to have to accept that.
When did you conclude that?
I guess I always kind of knew. I was atheistic for a while when I was younger. But as you get older, you start to look at the world and understand that the thing for me was actually, I guess, a scientific principle. You use law of equal and opposite force. If there is evil in the world, and I'd like to think we both agree there certainly is, yes, there has to be an equal and opposite force, which is good. And I would like to think that as well. Even the idea of God as a notion, even just as a concept, if that idea of God resists evil, then God is real. If you have two islands, you have two people, let's say a ship crashes, and you have two people who swim to two different islands. And one island are atheists, savages, and they live you apart. And the other island, you get there, and they believe in God, and they believe they're not allowed to kill you. Even just their idea of God saved your life. So I think even just the concept of God in and of itself, if enough people believe it makes them do good, then God must be true, and that's the equal and opposite force of the evil of the world. And this is how I view it. So I don't see how anybody with a conscience cannot believe in God.
That's such a profoundly different worldview from the one that we're presented with, I think. Do you think that's maybe the division in the West between people who see those forces at work and those who don't?
I think the West is actually split between people who think and people who don't think at all. I think that people, there's no such thing as these two opposing worldviews. I think people believe there's worldview A and worldview B. I disagree with that. I think there's worldview A, the good guys, which are primarily people who believe in God, who have parameters, who believe in standards, who believe in self-respect, who know how to say no. And there's worldview B, which changes day by day, based on what they're told, which means they have no real worldview at all. They just repeat it. And they have no standards, and they have no parameters. There's nothing you can tell them that will make them wake up and go, that's wrong, because they have no inherent morality. So you could literally, you could say bestiality is accepted and encouraged now, it's good for you, because for climate change. And they'll sit there and go, oh, climate change, well, off we go. And they'll just do it. So I think you have a camp of people who think, and you have a camp of people who repeat. And I don't think there's actually, the opposing side to the good, I don't think function as a thinking populace at all. I think they simply repeat.
It feels like the conflict between those two groups is getting more intense.
It's certainly getting more intense, and it was interesting for me because, and I want to be an optimist, but I lost so much faith in humanity during COVID. If you would have told me how COVID would have gone down before COVID, we're not that bad. You know, like, I thought the people aren't that dumb. But when I experienced COVID, it's actually scary. You see how the Nazis managed to do what they did. You see how they managed to put people in concentration camps. You see it. And I had a very unique view of COVID because in the first days of COVID, when people were falling over in China and the Italian hospitals were overrun, at the height of the panic, when most people believed, which was the very beginning, early stages, my brother and I had a very logical conversation. He said, we're two military-aged men in very good physical condition. If we die of this, the world's over. If it can kill us, it's zombie apocalypse. So why do we live in fear? So we found the only two countries that were open, which were Sweden and Belarus. We'd just been in Belarus. This is before the Ukraine war. We'd just been there. We decided to try Sweden. So for the first 3 months of COVID, during the height of lockdowns, when Florida was closed, when it was absolute, I remember, yeah, when it was the craziest lockdowns globally, we interested her in Sweden in absolute freedom. They had no restrictions, no masks, no vaccine passports, no social distancing, nightclubs are full, restaurants are open, perfectly complete normal society. Nobody talks about this anymore. Nobody talks about, wait, Sweden never did a thing. Everything functioned perfectly fine the entire time. And they don't have it. Where's their masks? Where's their illness of their winter of severe illness and death?
Yes.
They never had one. It's a cold country. Never had one. So we were living in Sweden, living completely normal lives, seeing the internet, and seeing this insanity, and we're like, well, surely if we just put up a few videos of us partying in Sweden in nightclubs, this will wake people up. People ignored our lives. That's the scariest thing about everything, is that they can get to a level where, with the media machine, where people will genuinely ignore their own eyes. I don't understand how you can get people so brainwashed that they will see that the sky is blue, and then they'll watch that the sky is green, and then they'll look at it again and go, the sky's green. It's crazy to me, but COVID proves they can do that. And that's why the war is getting so intense, because the principled people are saying, how can you still believe in the things that you're saying? Here is all the logical, empirical evidence that that is a lie. But these people are ideologically brainwashed, and they don't want to take enough. They don't have the bravery it takes to wake up and accept that they're being lied to. So they'd rather just, to the end of time, repeat what they're told. And it becomes more and more intense as it becomes more and more ridiculous. It's so scary. As it becomes more and more ridiculous, the more intense both sides get.
Yes.
Right? So what the future holds, I'm not entirely sure. But I like to believe, even my current charges, I found solace when I was in jail, that the thinking people are looking at this going, something about this stuff.
Well, I mean, it is a little bracing. I mean, when I discovered, I was sympathetic to you already, but, a man's accused of human trafficking, it's worth finding out what he's accused of. And when I discovered that there was no actual human trafficking charge, that's not actually human trafficking, I don't care what you call it, you weren't even accused of buying and selling anyone, then the next conclusion you inevitably reach is, they don't like the guy, they don't like his views, fine. They're going to send him to jail for that. That does seem like an escalation.
Absolutely, but if they don't like your views and you're inspiring millions of people to resist slave programming, you become a threat. Like, they discuss me.
But you can't send a guy to jail because you disagree with him.
You shouldn't. But even before I went to jail, the members of parliament in the UK were talking about me and what a dangerous role model I am for young boys. So they launched this initiative inside of British schools to ban me. My name can't be said inside of any British school. And members of parliament were standing up in parliament saying, Andrew Tate is dangerous. He's encouraging young boys to have misogynistic views, because I'm literally telling young men to go to the gym and to stand up for themselves and believe in themselves and believe in something. And by extension, you look at some of the sexual education books these children are being given, which I believe at age 9, I don't think a child needs to learn about anal sex or any of these things.
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. So they're pushing that to the children, but I'm banned.
Well, they're also pushing even video games on board.
Oh, completely. And you can listen to rap music about killing people all day long, and there's a whole, and Little Nas, he can have sex with the devil in music videos, that's fine. But I'm dangerous for saying go to the gym. And once I realized what was scary to me is that once the parliament discussing, you're basically considered a national security threat. You're a threat to national security at that level. And then all bets are off, right?
What about the UK? So the UK has become more authoritarian than anywhere in the Persian Gulf, correct? How did that happen?
Yeah, and it's, like I said, it's very interesting because people still, the people on Camp B who don't think, a lot of them believe that the law is fair. I've had people say to me, oh yeah, what they're doing to you is garbage. Well, you need a lawyer. Well, yeah, I do need a lawyer, and I do have a lawyer. Thank you. But it's not that simple, unfortunately. You know, the law is very subjective, and if they want to attack you with it, they're going to do a very good job of attacking you with it. And that's what the UK does. The UK have these laws which are extremely subjective, and they can use it as a weapon to basically silence anyone they decide.
Well, why? I mean, England is the birthplace of free speech, and the habeas corpus of kind of framework of global democracy that we thought we. And now it's a country where people are arrested for crime.
Well, what happened? Good question. And there's a saying I heard, and I don't know who said it, but he said that sick countries adopt laws like a dying man in front of us. And I think that the UK is ready to do it. We can look at it in any metric, whether it's living standards, whether it's crime rate. Any metric you can measure the success of the country by is falling off the cliff. It's becoming more and more expensive to live there. The education system's gone down the pan. London is the staffing capital of the world. You're not safe to leave your house. So their answer to this is just more and more laws. And unfortunately, as they do that, they're not even intelligent enough to actually attack the people who are doing genuinely bad to the world. They just make more and more authoritarian laws, and they end up using them to attack the people that the government doesn't like. And I ended up being one of them. And I think Europe in general has problems. If you look at France as we speak, I think it's on fire, isn't it? Most of it? Yeah. So they have issues, and their answer, what's a government's solution to anything? Law. What can a government do? No matter what.
But they're not laws that are aimed at fixing the problem that's right.
No, they're laws aimed at fixing the person who's talking about the problem. So why don't you get rid of the guy who tells everybody? Isn't that easier? Tucker? Why fix any of this? If we just shut him up, they won't know.
No, but it's like responding to a heat wave by breaking your thermometer.
Completely right. That's the plan. Plan one is to break the thermometer. We might deal with the heat wave a bit later.
We'll get air conditioning. No, we just break the thermometer.
For now, there's too many people talking about the heat wave. So let's just break that. And then later on, maybe when we have time, we'll do something about the actual issue.
It does seem like a lot of this is an effort not to talk about the real thing in Europe anyway, which is migration.
Yeah.
And the UK, formerly known as England, and France have both been completely changed by people from other countries.
Yep.
And I'm sure have added good things too. I mean, I'm not, but they changed them, and in general, they're not better countries. And like, why can't anyone admit that?
But this is what's really interesting to me about what's happening. Because we're talking about masculinity and men who say no and men who stand up. But there has to be balance, right? Everywhere in the world, there has to be power balances. If there's not a balance in power, there's going to be a vacuum, and that's going to be filled. If you neuter the native population of men, if you destroy their mentality to resist, if you tell them that every single thing about their masculine is wrong, and you basically feminize and unicate them, turn into units, and then you import high testosterone men from the third world who don't believe any of this garbage, who grew up in a society where they understand the only way to succeed is to be a fearsome predator to a degree. What do you think is going to happen? Like, who's supposed to protect the sanctity of these nations and these settlements and these towns and villages? The police? No. In general, I would argue that it's the masculine essence that can be detected by the people who arrive. I guarantee if you were to pick a bunch of these migrants in Sarajevo or Moscow, they hate themselves. I have a feeling they just look around and go, okay. But when you neuter the native populace, then it's like, well, there's a power vacuum. And when there's a power vacuum, what do we expect to happen? So
what are the French going to do about it? What's your average Englishman going to do about
it? Nothing. And that's the thing. And that makes you wonder, is this purposeful? Like, why? These two actions of neutering the naked populace and importing these high testosterone third worlders are so at odds with each other Is this purposeful? I'm not sure. Has anyone considered this? So yeah, it's interesting because you talk about.
Well, these are huge and intentional trends, and so, I mean, they're historically transformative trends. They're a big deal. So they're probably not happening by accident, right? There's got to be some intent. How could there not be?
That's right. And how do they expect all of this to end? And this is exactly what's happening with migration. The problem with migration is simply that there's no native masculine populace to enforce any degree of culture or boundaries or parameters. And like I said, I would argue the point. And I've been to Sarajevo and I've been to Moscow. I've been to these places and I've seen there's a whole bunch of migration and everybody seems to just behave a little bit different. And I think that's because people understand.
Did men live here?
That men live here. If you turn up in someone's house and their house is pristine, you're probably going to take your cup and you're going to go put it in the kitchen. But if you turn up in somebody's house and it's a fucking mess, and nobody respects the house and nobody cares, and the man is drugged out of his mind, half asleep on the couch, what are you going to do with your cup? You're going to leave it. You don't give a shit. If you turn up to the Western world and look at it, you're going to get another place. Absolutely. So what do we expect to happen in these scenarios, right? And it is purposeful, and it is scary that even me just telling men to go to the gym is seen as an act of defiance to the point where I have to be punished, I must go to jail, I must be silenced for longer, I must be broken.
If, at the end of all of this, no matter what happens, you plan to stay home?
I love Romania. I love this country. And if I'm found not guilty, I would stay in Romania again. I would still stay here. I don't believe in running away. I also believe, and perhaps this is...
Yeah, didn't he want to ask you that?
No,
legal case pending, but I mean, presumably you're rich enough to run away, and you have it.
Correct, I'm not going anywhere. I think if I was anywhere in the Western world, it's going to happen. I don't think this is Romania's fault. Let's put it that way. I don't think this is Romania's fault. I think if I resided in Switzerland or France or Italy,